Welcome to this tutorial where we are going to do the practical a live demonstration for configuring a BTC SIP Trunk on my voice business. Let's begin. So we got this architecture diagram where we've got our my voice business IP address being 192.168.1.2, and the BTC IP addresses are going to be we are going to be pairing with 186.176.45.23. So let's begin. We begin by logging onto my voice business controller. So we begin by some housekeeping. As you can see, this is saying local_conf. We just need to name our controller here and give it a PBX number. Let's go to network elements. This is a good housekeeping. You should always make sure that your controller has a proper name. So just call this lab, and then we come to PBX number here. We should make it 1. If at all we've got more controllers in a cluster, we should also make sure that the other controllers have also their own numbers, probably 2, 3, and 4. But because this is just a standalone controller for this customer, I'll just give it PBX number 1. Then we save. Then, because we are going to configure a SIP trunk, we must make sure that we've got SIP trunk licenses. So we do this, we go. But in my case, my controller doesn't have any SIP trunk licenses on it, unfortunately. But we can just borrow and go into a trial. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to borrow, let's say, 5. And it's just giving me a warning to buy, or otherwise it's going to expire in 60 days, which is fine with us. I'm just going to reverse the licenses after this tutorial. Now that we've got our SIP trunk licenses here, we've allocated 5. We can go ahead. Okay, because it is still saying logout conf here, but we have changed the name. We just need to log out and log back in so that we know our name change has taken effect. Okay, it is now saying label here. I am happy with that. Now we go to voice network elements, and we are going to add our BTC SIP trunk. I'll just name it BTC SIP, and I'm going to say other, and it's going to be a SIP peer because we said it's a peer-to-peer connection. So we take this, and we know that our SIP peer transport is going to be UDP. BTC uses UDP, and the port is 5060. And we come here, we put the IP address. We said our IP address is going to be this one. Let me just point to it with a laser. This is the IP address that we are going to be using. One 176.176.45.23. .186.176.45.23. 176.45.23. And as I mentioned in the previous video, this is not the true IP address for BTC. We are just giving this as a dummy because we don't want to expose the BTC IP address to somebody who doesn't require it. And we can click on save. Then the next thing, we come to our class of services. We must make sure that we've got a class of service for BTC. And before this tutorial, I went ahead and I did the class of service. I'll just point out what is important to be configured in that class of service. And we must take note that the class of service that I am using here is class of service number 5. We must make sure that display calling number yes, display calling number yes, display any DNS ISDN calling number code number, it's yes, display any ISDN calling number only, it's on yes, but it doesn't really matter. You can put a no here. And then display caller ID on multi keys, yes. Display the out digits during outgoing calls, you can say yes. Okay, then the next important thing that we should make sure is done is we can say SMDR external yes if we need to call logging. Then we must make sure that any DNS ISDN number delivered trunk is yes. This LTLI provided is yes. Public network via DPNNS is yes. Then public trunk is yes. Then we save that. That is all for the class of service options. And then after that we go to trunks. We go to trunk attribute. We are going to choose trunk attribute number 1. Depending on our environment, on what the customer is, whether they've got different numbers belonging to different departments in the same controller or not, whether we want to have call recognition turned on or off, or whether we want direct inward dialing service on or off. But for this scenario, we are just going to configure for a scenario where the customer has a billing number, which means they've got a billing number which is 398,000 as a billing number. That's scenario number 1. Then scenario number 2, we will have a customer whose outgoing number is a DDI number which is 3112 something, which means this extension, for example 2001, when they make an outgoing call, it should present on the other side as 3112001. That is our scenario number 2. But scenario number 1 is where the customer only has a single number, like 395,000. For instance, if this extension 2001 makes a call, the number that appears on the other side is 3958000, regardless of which extension makes a call, whether it's 2003, the same number should appear on the other side. So we are going to start with this, configuring for this scenario. So a trunk attribute is there for incoming calls. A trunk attribute is there to tell incoming calls where they must go to. How is the controller going to work with an incoming number? How is it going to distribute it? That is what the trunk attribute is for. So we are saying for any number that comes into the controller through the SIP trunk, absorb nothing. Let the number go into the processing, into the call routing of this controller without having been changed at the entry point of the controller. So we are going to say absorb 0. Then we can say this trunk label, we can just label it BTC SIP, and then we save. This 0 is very important to put. If we leave it as a blank, you are going to have challenges. You are going to fail to receive calls. So make sure that 0 is there. Then next stop is on the SIP here. We are going to do a SIP PA profile. Right now it's blank, we don't have any SIP PA profile there, so we are going to add a new one. So it's going to ask us to name this SIP PA profile. Because this SIP trunk is for BTC, probably might have another service provider again as a second SIP trunk. You might have Mascom, or you can have any other provider. It could be Paratas, it could be whoever, maybe it could be provider X. So I prefer to name this SIP trunk according to the provider name. So this one being from BTC, I'm going to call it BTC SIP. And then we go to the network element. The network element is the one we configured under voice network element, where we put the public IP address for BTC when we're creating a peer. That is the network element that if we drop down here, we are going to see it, and we are going to select it. Because the BTC SIP trunk is a peer-to-peer, it doesn't use registration, because BTC will recognize through the IP address that you are using to make a call, and also the number that you are using for authentication for them to let you through. So we are going to use the address type. We are going to use the IP address instead of a QDN. We are going to select IP address. Then we are going to go to the maximum simultaneous calls. Here normally we are going to match it with the number of channels in our license. Remember, in our license I did not have any SIP trunk license, but then I went and requested for temporary 5 licenses, so I'm going to put 5 here. If I had 30 and I want to use all those 30, I'll be putting 30 here. If it's 60 and it is required that I need to use the all 60, I'll put it here. Probably I might have more, but them being there for other uses, I'll probably give myself 10 probably, so that depending on how I am allocating them. So I will put that 5 here. Then on the minimum reserved call license, I will just leave that on 0. We don't have any outbound proxy server, but in our next video when we configure the MBG, that is going to be our outbound proxy server. But for now we don't have any. So the next thing that we are going to set is the SMDR tag. So we can give this any random number. We must change from 0 to any random number, but for this tutorial I'm choosing to put 99 there. So this is what we are going to see in SMDRR logs. If we are sending SMDRR logs to probably a third-party call logging system like MEN 3000, like your terms for data text, that 99 is going to go through as the channel number, as the trunk ID or the trunk number. So we give it that 99. Our trunk service is what we configured earlier on when we said it is something to do with how the controller receives incoming calls, and it tells it how it must process incoming calls, where we had to put a 0 to say we want all the digits that we are getting from the provider to get into our call process. Then we scroll down, because we are not authenticating, we leave username and password as they are with the blank. So that is all for the basic. Then for call routing, we don't do anything, we don't change anything, we leave everything on default there. Then we went to calling line ID, because we said we are using scenario number 1, where every outgoing call is going to be 395,8000. So we come here and we put 395,8000. So any extension, when it makes an outgoing call, it's not the extension number that's going to be shown at the other end, but it's going to show as 395,8000. Then we leave everything on default as it is. We go to SDP options. We scroll down, we are looking at what we must change. We must change this force sending SDP in initial invite message to yes. Then we go down. If you don't force sending in SDP options, you are going to have one-way audio when you call other SIP providers. Like for example, if you make a call out to Orange, for instance, you are going to have one-way audio, because they expect SDP in the initial invite message. So you have to make sure that it is on yes here. Then we go down, what else can we change? Because our controller is going to be behind a firewall, so the firewall is going to do some NAT, so we are just going to leave NAT on yes. Then we go down, what else can we change? Renegotiate, repeat SDP, restrict audio codec. You can leave it on not restricted, but I choose to select it to G711 and G729, because every provider supports this. But if we just leave it on no restriction, it's going to send some other codecs that other providers do not support, and some other providers, when they see a codec that they do not support, they can reject the call. But anyway, codecs are negotiated between the two parties until they come to an agreement of which codec they will use for a particular call. Then we go down again, what else do we need to change? For SDP options, that is all that we need to change. And from there we go to signaling and header. What do we need to change here? Let me have a look. We need to disable reliable provisioning response. We say yes, disable it. Then we go to the move. Let's move down. What else do we need to change here? What else? Let's go down. Reason headers Q50, let's say yes, because these ones, when we are doing some Wireshark traces, we want to see these reasons. When we are troubleshooting, we want feedback on what is going on So we put that on yes. Require reliable provisioning response on outgoing calls, we say no. Then we go down. What else do we need to change here? What else do we need to change here? That is all. So we are going to click on save. So we have saved our CPPA profile. Then after we do that, we can go to our core routing automatic route selection. We can go to our ARIS routes, and we can change accordingly to according to our class of restriction. But what is important is that we are going to go to routing medium, and we are going to say SIP Trunk. And when we go to CPA profile, we drop down, we are going to see our trunk is there. We select it, and depending on whether this COR group number is going to be 1 and digit modification number 1, and we make this blank, the digits before out pulsing, we make it blank, and we save. So depending on our COR, we might want to do this up to route number 6 or up to route number 15. It just depends on your CORs. So you match your COR, you match your class of restrictions. So I'm not going to go into the class of restrictions. It is not the scope of this tutorial. But now what we have managed to achieve now, we have managed to, when you want to make an outgoing call, what it's going to mean is that, let me come here. If this extension, no, I don't want that color, let's remove it. Okay, let's take blue. If this extension 2001 makes a call, it's going to come here, it's going to pick up this number, and it's going to go to BTC, and it's going to come, and let's say we are calling this number 3636. So we are going to end up with having a so our invite is going to be able to be like 2.363.468.176.176.45.23 from from 395.8,000 at 202.101.40.12, and we are going to have our SDP, which is going to be that 711 ULO, 711 ALO, ZG 729, as we selected those ones, and we are going to have this as an IP address for the media. Let's write it here. No. And the SDP is going to 202.101.40.12. Probably it's going to have some ports here, like 50, let's say 222. Okay, we spoke about this in a previous video, so we are not going to waste time on that. This eraser is very small. It deletes a small portion at a time. Okay, that is what we have achieved we have achieved outgoing calls. Now let's see, the next thing that we need to address is incoming calls. So because we have configured a trunk attribute that has something to do with outgoing calls. Now for incoming calls, we are expecting the SIP trunk to invite to send us an invite which is in the opposite direction, we are expecting to receive, and if it's an incoming call, we are expecting BTC to send us an invite. Mitel is going to receive this invite. It's going to say 2. In the 2 on the Mitel side is going to say 3958000 at 202.101.40.12.50.60 port 5060. When the firewall receives this, because of the port forwarding here, on the file is going to strip this 202.101.40.12 and replace it with 192.168.1.2 port 5060. so that this can reach the controller. So the controller now will receive this through the trunk attribute. Remember, in our trunk attribute we said absorb 0. Absorb 0. So which means this number is going to come in as it is. So the controller is going to see a call for 395,8000, but because we don't have any 395,8000 as an extension, the microcontroller is going to send a response to BTC to say not known. Of course, there's a SIP, there's a response code for not known, but without going much into SIP response codes, let's forget about that, because we don't want it to send a response of not known. So what we are then going to do is that we are going to define 395,8000 in the controller and tell it to go on and ring on 2001. So because if we put this in our controller, the controller is going to see, oh, 395,8000 is going to go and ring on 2001. So I'm not going to send a response to say not known, but I'm going to send a response of saying ringing, of which the BTC side is going to send an OK after having agreed on the SDP. Also there's a invite OK. So for us, for the controller not to reject this call that has 395 in it, we need to tell it to, whenever I see 395 in an invite, please accept it and send that call to extension 2001. We are going to do this by way of configuring a speed dial. But if you had my voice business console, we're just going to make this 395,8000 a soft key on the console. Okay, so let's jump back to the my voice business and do the configuration. Okay, so if we don't have a my voice business console, we are going to go to system properties, system feature settings, and we are going to go to system speed calls, and we are going to add this 395,8000 is going to go and ring on 2001, and we can just give it a comment to say incoming calls. So let's say BTC SIP incoming calls, and we save. So if we come here now, what this means is that we go to our trunk attribute here, which is absorb 0. Is going to receive the call, is going to come through. The call is going to come through from BTC onto the SIP trunk, through the SIP trunk. Okay, let me do this. So we've got a BTC SIP trunk here. Let's make it like a pipe. This side is BTC, this side is MIVB. So this is our SIP trunk. A call is going to come down onto this SIP trunk. It's looking for 395,800. When it gets to the My Voice business, remember this SIP trunk, we assigned it a trunk attribute number 1. Let me show you here. We assigned the trunk attribute number 1, and let's also fix this class of service. Our class of service is number 5. You remember we did a class of services here. We said class of service number 5 is for our SIP trunk here. So when we are doing our trunk attribute, we said we are going to use trunk attribute number 1. We are going to give it class of service number 5, and we say absorb 0 for incoming calls. Incoming digits is 0. We are not going to absorb anything. So what then this means is that when the call comes through the BTC SIP, My Voice business is going to look at the BTC SIP trunk configuration. And then it's going to see that it is operating with trunk attribute. It's trunk attribute number 1. Then this trunk attribute number 1 is saying absorb 0, which means we are going to remain with 395,800. So it's going to say, what do I do with this 395,800? It's going to look up speed dial. Then it sees that there is a speed dial which says take this to 2001, and then it's going to take this to 2001 here, and then 2001 will start ringing if at all it was free to take the call. Okay, now let's remove that speed dial and do the second scenario where we have a My Voice business console. Let me see if I've got a license for My Voice business console here, or if I need to okay, that's fine. Let's just go ahead and configure one. Users, attendance, IP consoles. Let me add this one. My Voice business console, I'll call it number 2000. Soft key appearances, I'll put 3. Interconnector, I'll put 1. That should be all. And I save it. I'll go to console soft keys. I am going to change this one. I am going to make, sorry, I changed the wrong one. Let's change soft key number 2 to 395,800. We save. So the same concept applies where an incoming call comes through the BTC SIP trunk. The controller looks at what trunk attribute does it belong to. It says that it belongs to trunk attribute number 1. It sees that it says absorbs 0. Don't change anything on the number that is coming through. It looks up that number, and then it sees that number is configured on a IP console on key number 2, so it's going to ring that key number 2. But remember also that the IP console has a day, night 1 and night 2 to operate. So for this call to come through, it means the controller, at the console should be operator present, or then that's when you end up having to do a rerouting call alternative to a proper extension. That is beyond the scope of this tutorial, how to do call rerouting or alternatives for my voice console. So let me just delete this. I don't need it. I don't actually need this console on this system. So for me to delete, I have to clear this key first. Then I can come and delete it. Okay, so now let's go to another scenario where we have a DDI range. We call this a DDI range, such that if each extension makes an outgoing call, it's going to present its own unique number on the other side. It's going to append, it's going to put its extension number at the back of this number. So what we are going to do there, we are going to go to our trunks, SIP trunk, DDI range for CPN substitution. We are going to change number 1. We are going to say our DDI range is from extension 2000 up to 2099 perhaps. Then we are going to substitute it with 311 XXXX. We save that. Then we are going to go to our peer profile, and we are going to look at outgoing DDI ranges, and we are going to update, and we are going to select this. We are going to push this number 1 to selected indices, and we save. So what we have achieved is that if 2001 makes a call, it's going to come here, it's going to be changed to 3112001, and it goes. So the invite is going to say from 3112001 at 202.101.42.12. If 202 makes a call, it's going to come here. It's going to be changed to 3112002, and the invite will be 3112002.8. If this one makes a call again, it's going to come here. The CPN substitution is going to be changed to 3112003, and this is going to be 3112003.8, so that if they were calling this number will be receiving a call from. If they were calling 363646, this 3646 will be receiving a number from 3112001, 3112002, and so forth. Suppose we come and add another extension here. And we give it extension number 3001. Remember, this is outside our CPN substitution. Our CPN substitution is 2000 to 2099. So ideally, this number will fail to call. It will be rejected by BTC because it is outside our CPN substitution. But for us, because we put a for us now, because we still have this call line ID. Come on. Call line ID with this number 3958000. What it means is that this 3001 will be able to make that outgoing call as well by coming here, and because it is not part of the CPN substitution, it's going to come and pick up this number and it's going to be able to call out. If it was calling 363666, it's going to be 3636466 will receive a call from 3958000. So it is very important to keep a number here, even though you have DDI, to keep a pilot number here. Or if at all you don't know the pilot number, you can just come here and take one of the first DDI number, which is probably the number for your reception for the console. If you can just come here, and in our case it's going to be 3112000, and we can save. So that should a number which is outside the DDI range want to make a call, is going to call with 3112000. But should the caller who received that call wants to call back, it's not going to be able to be received on an extension that made the call, because it is outside the DDI number. It's going to be received at the reception. I hope that is making sense. So I would like to say that is all for now. If you have questions, you can send them through the comment. I will respond to every question, any suggestion, any comments. In our next video, we are going to be configuring an MBG. We are going to include an MBG in the setup. We are going to include an MBG here. Okay, let me use red. So the MBG is going to sit here, one leg is here, and a virtual leg will be here. It is as if it has two legs, but it is actually one. You will see when you're configuring it. So we are going to give it an IP address 192.168.1.3. Okay, let's give it .4. So that's when somebody wants to make a call, it's going to come through here. Okay, let me use a different color for this. This is just a quick, I will not take more than 1 minute on this, because I am overstepping the scope of this tutorial. We can use blue. If this one wants to make a call, it's going to be like this, then this, and this, and here. This one wants to make a call, is going to come here. So for media, we are going to anchor on the MBG. So between MBG and BTC, this is going to be BTC, this is going to be MBG. This is where we are going to have our SIP trunk. And all the communication will be handled by the MBG to BTC. And this will hide behind the MBG. All this is going to hide behind the MBG. The MBG will take care of that. That is all for now. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, share and subscribe for more videos. Bye bye.